Hello, Southeast Iowa. Welcome to another edition of the King Kong Trail. I'm your host, Amy Vandiver. Doug is sitting in the tech booth back there. And we have a very special guest in the audience. No, not the audience. At the table with us.
At the table.
He is at the table with us. We have Mr. Tom McKay. And Tom is an author. And if you've been down to Burlington by the Book on farmers markets, you'll see him every once in a while. We saw him there last Thursday, or a couple Thursdays ago, and last year. So you make your appearances here in Burlington, here and there, don't you?
I'm at the farmers market once a year, generally, and then once or twice do signings inside the store, Burlington by the Book. Wonderful store.
Oh, I love that bookstore. I'm so glad we have a bookstore here in Burlington because books are good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so you're not from Burlington, but you're around this area in Iowa. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Well, I live in Hampton, Illinois, which is on the Mississippi River, up by the Quad Cities. If anybody knows where Interstate 80 crosses the Mississippi River, which most people know, I live 3 miles south of there.
So you're right on 80. So that's like where the magic line for weather goes. Like all the bad weather is either north or south of 80. I think it always is right above 80.
It's been that way this year. And fortunately in Hampton, we've been kind of in this narrow little slip where we haven't had the bad weather. It's gone south of us. It's gone north of us. Hasn't hit us yet.
It's Iowa, or in your case, Illinois. So it's the Midwest.
Well, I look out my kitchen window and I see Iowa.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's a good place to look at. So can you tell us a little bit about your history in this area and why your books really focus in on Iowa City and in that area?
Well, I grew up in Hampton, where I live now. I worked for my career working in museums, so I worked around the country in various places. But I worked for 5 years managing historic sites for the Iowa State Historical Department.
Nice.
I went to college at Cornell in Mount Vernon. And if you live in the Quad Cities, as I do, when I was a kid, there were 3 bridges. Now there are 5 bridges. So people are back and forth between Iowa and Illinois literally all the time. So you're a half an Iowan if you live in the Quad Cities, I think.
For sure. So with the museum things, can you kind of tell us about some of the things that you did as a curator?
Yeah, I went to graduate school in Cooperstown, New York, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is.
Oh,
I lived a half a block from there, but I was really there because the New York State Historical Association is there and has a cooperative program with the state university system giving a degree in museum work. So I started there. I had a 1-year grant out of there at Schenectady, New York. Then I went to a very interesting small historical society in Old Lyme, Connecticut, a very rich community. An old house which had been owned by a wealthy sea captain who had a regular trip back and forth between Connecticut and England. And what people didn't know is that's a long trip. So he had a family in both places.
Oh.
So when he passed away, there wasn't money that people thought there would be. So his wife and his unmarried daughter had a finishing school there and then eventually a boarding school where a bunch of well-known American Impressionist artists discovered it and all came there together and became an art colony of American Impressionist artists in the early 1900s.
Oh, fun.
So that was a very interesting place to work and a whole different kind of experience. But then I wanted to come back to the Midwest. I spent a couple of years working on my master's thesis and doing some consulting living in South Dakota. My wife was working for the Preservation Division in South Dakota. And then that's when I came to work for the state of Iowa managing historic sites.
Okay. Is that how you met through?
We met in graduate school in Cooperstown. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, we were married 51 years. I lost Joyce 2 years ago, but we were married 51 years and very grateful for a wonderful marriage of all that time. I have 2 sons who both live in Milwaukee because after we left Iowa, we went to Wisconsin. And there I had a job for the State Historical Society for 25 years, providing advice and assistance to all the smaller historical organizations around the state.
Oh, okay.
And part of that led me into this book we're going to be talking about, Lost in the Black Hologram, because it involves a lot of African-American history. And I worked with the Wisconsin Black Historical Society Museum in inner city Milwaukee on a big oral history project. So I talked to lots of people in inner city Milwaukee, learned lots of stuff, and that helped put some of the underpinnings underneath this book.
Okay, yeah, I noticed that in the book they take a trip to Milwaukee. Do you want to kind of introduce your characters in the book?
Yeah, there are actually three main characters. Emma Jean Whitcomb is a sort of larger-than-life woman. She's tall. She's 6'2", and she became very famous right out of graduate school for a play that she wrote called The Black Hologram. And that play was based on her anger about racism growing up in Milwaukee. She didn't it became a famous play, and she didn't really repeat that success. So she drifted into academia and eventually ended up at the University of Iowa in Iowa City. She has a daughter who's entering 8th grade. Shakira is her name, and she's an important character, although not one of the two main characters. And then the second main character is Wesley Whitcomb. He lives in the same upscale apartment complex made out of an old mansion in Iowa City. And when Emma Jean first moves in, she notices on the mailbox that there's another Whitcomb living by the little slips of paper by the mailboxes. There's another Whitcomb living there. And hoping, because Iowa City is a pretty white place, there'll be another African-American person. And, of course, it isn't. It's Wesley, who's a restaurant owner. He's successful, but he's not famous, and he's not rich like Emma Jean. But the story begins as they develop a relationship.
Okay, very cool. And a lot of the imagery that you have in the book, even the details about the house and in the carriage house, and focusing a little around in basketball too there, and Shy.
Shay is the way I pronounce it.
Okay, that I was going to ask because when I was reading it, I was reading it Shy, but I was
You're not the only one. and for those who haven't read it, her full name is Shakira.
Okay.
But she goes by Shay.
Gotcha. So, what inspired you to really write this book? You had the people that you did the Milwaukee dialogues with,
yes.
And it's got a little bit of Milwaukee in here, but it's mostly in the Iowa City area. So, why'd you pick Iowa City?
Well, when you're writing, you want your book to be as authentic as you can make it, as plausible as you can make it. And Iowa City is a place I know well. I went to college at Cornell, just up the road 19 miles. And then when I worked for the state of Iowa, I managed a historic site. So I actually lived up in Claremont, a very small town of the northeast corner of the state where there's a historic site called Montauk. But I had responsibilities all around the state. And the main office for our Division of Historic Preservation at that time was in Iowa City.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time in my life in Iowa City.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's an interesting book, and I didn't understand the cover until like the very end.
Yeah, we can't give the end away.
I cannot give the end away.
We can't be like my sister.
You have to look at you can look at the picture. Here's the picture of the book.
Yes.
And you'll have to read all the way to probably right about here before you understand that.
Yes, you will.
Picture.
And honestly, one of the questions with the book is Lost in the Black Hologram sounds like it could be science fiction. And then the cover maybe, but it isn't science fiction. It's a novel, it's a love story, but it's also a serious story about race in America. So I'm proud of the book. It's my 6th book, and I have a wonderful illustrator, Ingrid Kallick, who does beautiful cover art on my books. And this is probably the least exceptional of her work, but it needed to be what it is because, as you say, it helps understand the end of the book.
Right. What are some of the other books? You do small town books, don't you?
I did it. My first novel was called West Fork. It was published by Augustana College in Rock Island. And it's a story that begins in 1968 with a young man going to teach school in Illinois in a new school they built with a tiny little crossroads community of less than 100 people, but they built a school with a gym on one end and 6 rooms down the side. They built them all over Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois when the one-room schools closed. And 1968 is the year in which there are no more one-room schools left in Illinois. So that's why it starts there. It should have been closed before then, but a few school districts got waivers before they could get their consolidated schools built. And so I picked that, and the area of Illinois it's in is sort of western Illinois, if you think of Kewanee and Canton and places like that.
Oh,
and
Canton?
Yes.
My mom lives near Canton.
Oh, really? Well, out in the countryside there was where a couple of one-room schools were. In fact, just a little bit east of Canton, slightly south.
There's an old one-room schoolhouse, and it's my the way I know how to turn to my mom's house, because she's out in the middle of nowhere. But it's called Old School Road. Stone School Road. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And I always think I like looking at those one-room schoolhouses and thinking, how could it, just picturing. I work in a place that does education for littles, and I'm like sitting there thinking, all these people in one room.
Yes.
Wow. All the grades.
Well,
now, I have to interject. If your mom is listening and you say that she lives out in the middle of nowhere, she will tell you the history of Breeds Road.
Yes.
So.
Yes, she would. Okay, Mom, I know you have a town that you live in, and it's a real town.
Well, I worked in local history for 25 years in Wisconsin. I worked in some very small places, and every place has a history, and it's all significant. In fact, the book West Fork is really about the change in rural culture as farms have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger throughout the Midwest, and the impact that had on very small towns and towns that have the businesses and schools and everything in those places have disappeared, and it's just the people living there now for the most part. Maybe a church, but the schools are closed with all the consolidation. So I think West Fork is an important book, and I think Lost in the Black Hologram is an important book. A couple of my others are maybe a little less so. I have a book called The Old Guard, which is just to make people laugh. It's about a young woman who writes a sports blog, and suddenly she needs help from her next-door neighbor, a new guy who's just moved into their apartment building. And he knows nothing about sports, and the humor starts there. It's not really a book about sports. They take a trip to New York City. It's about airline travel and all that crazy stuff nowadays. But it's a fun book.
Okay, so it's just about life. Just having fun with life.
Yeah.
Okay. What was that book called again?
The Old Guard.
The Old Guard.
And if anybody's interested in my books, they have them at Burlington by the book. And if Chris doesn't have one of the books in stock, he knows how to get hold of me, and we can get a book down to Burlington in a hurry.
Right. Now, for my listeners who aren't in the Burlington area, are you available in other bookstores in the Midwest, or are you online?
I'm not online. I'm kind of living in the past. I mean,
okay.
I showed you my phone before I turned it off, and you saw it's a flip phone, so you can figure out I'm not much online. But I am in about 20 independent bookstores. Prairie Lights in Iowa City, River Lights in Dubuque, the Quad Cities, the Brood Book, across the river, Atlas Collective in Moline, 3 or 4 places in Wisconsin. If anybody's listening in Wisconsin, Daydream Believer in Lake Mills, and Literatus in Watertown. So I'm in quite a few places. New little bookstore in Rockton, Illinois, just outside of Rockford, called Inkwell. A wonderful bookstore, Books on First in Dixon, Illinois. So yeah. You can find them.
Okay, that's good. It's always good to know where we can find people that we, or books by the people that we have on, so that we can say, hey, go visit these bookstores. And I know that they have right now a bookstore tour, and a lot of the independent bookstores are doing that, where you can get like stamps and prizes if you get to so many bookstores and things like that.
I have this tendency just to talk to strangers. So when I was down at the farmer's market doing the signing, a woman came along with a T-shirt for that book tour you're talking about.
Oh.
And so I asked her about it. And
I didn't know they had T-shirts.
Yeah, so on the back, a list of the bookstores, and she was with 2 other women, and they were walking away. So I don't want to take much of your time, but I'm really interested because I have books in some of these stores. And she told me a little bit about it, and I said, well, you probably need to go because your people you're with are leaving. She said, well, they can't leave because I'm driving. She said, one's my daughter, and the other owns a bookstore.
Oh.
I said, where? And she said, Ackley, Iowa. I don't know if you know Ackley, Iowa.
I don't.
It's north central, not too far from Iowa Falls.
I've heard of Iowa Falls.
North and west of Waterloo. But it's less than 2,000 people, and they have an independent bookstore. I think it's called Perpetual Pages. Turns out years ago I had good friends from Ackley who I haven't seen in at least a dozen years. And I said, I'm going to walk over to the car and see if they know my friends. So I said, do you know Doug and Rosie Lindemann? Oh, yeah, we go to church together.
Oh, fun.
And only 5 days before, I'd been in Rockford, Illinois, at a softball tournament. Men's fast pitch softball used to be a big sport, and now it's practically gone. But my friend Doug had a team up in Ackley, and he had a young guy then who pitched for him named Scott O'Brien. Well, I was at this softball tournament in Rockford 5 days before being here in Burlington, And Scott O'Brien was actually pitching for one of the teams. So I talked to him. I said, "Do you know Doug and Rosie Lindemann?" "Oh, yeah, I go to church with them." So within 5 days, 2 different people go to church with my friends who I haven't seen in years. One at a bookstore in Burlington, one at the softball tournament in Rockford. So
maybe you should surprise them and go to church and be like, "Hey, I know your friends here, and I know your friends here."
I feel like I should go up to Ackley now. It seems like a thing to do.
Oh, and then you could do like a book signing at Perpetual Pages over there.
I should contact them.
Yeah, how
because
fun.
Honestly, if you're an unknown author, as I clearly am, most of the books that you sell are when you do signings. You sell a few off the shelves, but it's mostly through the signings.
I think people like to know the people that they are, getting to know the people that, are behind the books is fun. That's one of the reasons why I like doing the podcast, and we have authors and musicians. We have just a wide variety of people, but getting to hear your story and helps us understand the stories that you write too. So,
well, I hope so.
Okay. Well, I know that the Lost in the Black Hologram, that is like, it's your latest book. Are you working on any other projects?
I have a manuscript that I finished, which I had set aside. I used to be in a writers group in Madison. Then COVID hit, and our writers group dissolved, and I was living in Illinois anyway, and even though I have a place to stay in Madison, we just didn't. So I set aside this manuscript, and I picked it up a couple months ago. It was very close to done, and I finished it.
Nice.
But the book selling business is getting a little bit different, and you really have to be more aggressive online than I am nowadays. And the other thing is independent bookstores are wonderful. The nicest people in the world run independent bookstores. But they're getting kind of swamped because of all the self-published books and small press books. So they really have less room in their stores for local authors. So it's getting a little harder to get your books on shelves, and that's the way I sell. So I don't know. I mean, it's possible. This manuscript I'd set aside is better than I remembered, so maybe I'll try to do something with it. But for now, I Lost in the Black Hologram is the one I'm really trying to do the most with, and I'm doing programs if anybody's interested.
Okay, what does your program consist of?
I do a program where I read from the book and we discuss certain elements of the book. Also, if somebody's got a book club and they want to read it, like somebody in Burlington where they sell the book, I can get books down here, and Chris can provide the books through the Burlington by the book. And then I'm available to meet with book clubs if they want to have the author right there. And I don't charge anything for these things. It's mostly about this book. The more people who read it and discuss it, the happier I am.
Gotcha.
It's got a couple nice blurbs on the back, and one of them from Jamila Benson, who's the program director at the Wisconsin Black Historical Society Museum, which is that institution I talked about in the state of Milwaukee. She loved the book, and one of the things she made in the blurb is that it's thought-provoking, and that's what I hope for. So meeting with book clubs and doing programs sort of forwards that goal.
Gotcha. So can you tell us a little bit about the person that you teamed up with the discussion questions in the back?
Yes. Tracy.
How'd you meet her?
By accident. But as I mentioned earlier, I do talk to strangers. So I was in the writers group in Madison, I mentioned, and we met. I probably can say this, and the independent bookstore people won't be too mad at me. We met at a Barnes & Noble in Madison, Wisconsin, and there was a grocery store, McKay, right next to it. And one day after our writers group meeting, I was walking over to the grocery store to pick something up, and there was a tall African-American woman standing there. And, of course, I had the manuscript already for this story, but it wasn't a book yet. And so I just stopped and said, "Excuse me, can I ask you how tall you are?" And she said, "I'm 6'2".
Oh, okay.
I said, "Well, you won't believe this, but I've written a manuscript for a novel about an African-American woman who's 6'2". And she said, "Tell me about it." And I said, "Well, she grew up in Milwaukee." And the woman says, "I grew up in Milwaukee." And I said, "You did?" I said, "What do you do?" She says, "Oh, I work here at the university." So she works for the University of Wisconsin. My main character works for the University of Iowa. They're both 6'2" African-American women from Milwaukee.
Wow.
So she said, "I want to read it."
That's ironic.
I said, "Well, yeah." I said again, "Well, it's only a manuscript, so I don't care. I want to read it." So I gave it to Tracy, and we introduced ourselves. And about a month later, we got together, and she said, "Tom, I love this book." She said, "This is so much like what I went through growing up in Milwaukee. And the voices of the characters sound so much like people I knew in Milwaukee."
Oh, that's good.
That was a huge boost to me, obviously.
Yes.
But I couldn't find a publisher for the book. And because I was in the writers group for so long, when our writers group would kind of run dry, I would try to write a short story or something just so we had something to talk about. So after about 15 years, I had a big stack of short stories, and a few had been published in some small journals and stuff. But for the most part, short stories don't get published anymore, and certainly not as books. So Riverlight's Bookstore in Dubuque, which had sold my 2 previous books, has a self-publishing service for local authors.
Nice.
And so I had done 2 books of short stories through them, and I called Tracy about a year and a half ago, and I said, Tracy, I'm not any younger, and I don't think this book's going to be in print unless I self-publish it. But I said, given the issues that I think it needs a discussion guide. Would you work on a discussion guide with me? Mm-hmm. And she said she'd love to, and she did. And it really made the discussion guide so much better because she had perspectives I just wouldn't have. And
right.
So it was really, really, really helpful. So I'm very proud of those discussion questions that are at the end of the book. And in fact, I just got an email from Tracy this morning, as it turns out. She wants to meet with me about another project she's got going.
Oh, fun. Well, maybe you'll write the discussion questions for her book.
Well, she's going to do a book, but it'll be a different kind of book. Mm-hmm. She has a nonprofit organization called Elephant Parade, and it's about helping women become better leaders because elephants are a matriarchal society.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where she got the name. And
I was wondering. I was like...
she's really dedicated to it. If you want to go online and look up Elephant Parade, you can find out more about it. She's really working hard at it. It's a big challenge. But to help women become better leaders, and particularly women who are coming from stress situations of all different kinds, poverty or other situations.
There's a lot of different barriers people can face, for sure.
There are.
Yeah.
And so she's really devoted to it.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, when I read this, and the first time they mentioned 6'2", I got to thinking, well, you've met me. I am not 6'2", but my youngest son, just hit 6'2", and likes to let me know that I am the shortest person in the household now. So when I saw 6'2", I'm like, oh, that's ironic.
Yes.
Because he just hit 6'2", and I'm like, huh. And they're not as tall as Doug is, but I think they will be.
Doug, how tall are you? Do I dare ask?
I am 6'3".
Okay.
And probably shrinking.
I'm
getting to that point in life.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They'll probably catch you.
Yeah. And my oldest son, our middle child, is just about that much shorter than I am.
Okay.
So I still got him.
Okay.
But if you add his hair on top of it, then he wins.
Yeah. He's got a lot of hair.
Yeah, my hair doesn't add much to anything. When I get out of the shower, it's like a lot of scalp there. So, I've been just talking like crazy. Do you have questions you wanted to ask?
Oh, I've been asking the questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I liked how you teamed up with somebody for the discussion questions, and I didn't realize, the background of, that she was actually that tall, and so many similarities. How often do you said you got an email from her today? Do you still have lots and lots of contact with her? Or?
No, unfortunately we don't. She's got a very busy life. I got a very busy life. She's in Milwaukee and I'm in Hampton, Illinois. Now I go to Milwaukee a lot because both my sons live in Milwaukee. But Tracy's got a very busy life, and for an old guy, I do too. So, but we're very close friends.
Okay,
yeah.
that is
always
nice.
Will be,
yeah, very cool. And so your 2 sons in Milwaukee, what do they think about the book?
I don't think either one of them's read it.
Kids.
Yeah, well, they're not kids anymore, but even my family knows I write, and they're kind of interested. My daughter-in-law has read it, and she hasn't said a lot about it. One of the things I'm most pleased about is I've had a lot of good feedback from African-American readers. I did a signing at a Juneteenth event in Davenport on the levee, not this summer, but the previous summer. Mm-hmm. And a young African-American woman came along, and she wanted to buy a book. Well, you know how kids are. They don't have any cash. And I'm not set up to take credit cards and Venmo and all that kind of stuff. And that's all she had was credit cards and a phone and maybe a chip in her head. I don't know. But she didn't have a way to take cash. Uh-huh. So I have plenty of books, and I don't make money at this. So I said, well, here, just take one. I'll sign it. I said, but I'm going to give you my email address. If you get around to reading it, you have any comment about it, let me know. And then, of course, being the age I am, I forgot that I'd done this. So just this June, I got an email from this young woman, and she said, "Oh, I just finished college. I finally had time to read, and I got so much to say about your book, but I can't put an email because it'd be as long as an essay. Can we get together?" And I said, "Sure." And when she bought the book, she told me she was studying at the College of William and Mary in Virginia. And we were in Davenport, Iowa, and I'm thinking, well, that's kind of unusual. Mm-hmm. Well, as it turns out, her dad was is in the military. And so she had been in Virginia when she started college, and he got transferred to the Rock Island Arsenal, and that's why the family's in Davenport now. So she came back to Davenport, and we got together at one of those bookstores, the Brood Book in Davenport, and we talked for 2 hours, and she just loved the book. And that makes you, that's rewarding. Mm-hmm. When someone who has an obvious interest in the book thinks it's one that they appreciate. And then working in museums, I have a good friend, Lonnie Bunch, who is the secretary of the Smithsonian Institution.
Ooh.
And Lonnie
I love the Smithsonian.
It's fabulous. And he was the founding director of the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture, which is probably the greatest accomplishment in museum work in the time I've been involved, literally. And so I've been friends with Lonnie for a long time. So I sent Lonnie a copy of the book, and I got an email back, and the email said, "Overwhelmed" was the title of it. And then he talked about how good it was, but it made me laugh. He said, "Well, I took the day off and went down to the beach, so I should finish your book." And I'm thinking to myself, Lonnie, this is not a beach read. But he loved the book and is very complimentary about the book. So, and he's kind of the nation's expert on many of the questions that are in the book. So
wow, that's a great feather in your cap for that, for sure.
It is. Both of the things I recounted are important to me. Someone as well known as Lonnie and a young person coming along, with growing in their own ideas about the world. Both are important to me.
What is the one thing you want people to get out of this book?
I want people just to think about race in America and what issues surround it, and have they thought clearly about it, and have they examined their own ideas and thoughts and actions. There's a passage in there where Emma Jean and her daughter Shay are going to buy a dress because they have to go to a fancy banquet because Emma Jean's sister, who's even taller than Emma Jean, has been the basketball coach at the University of Iowa for a long time, and she's getting honored for some community service project that she's done for a long time. So they go to this banquet in Des Moines, and they have to be kind of dressed fancy. So they go into a very nice store in Iowa City, which is fictional. It's not a real place. Mm-hmm. But they encounter 2 clerks who see them and see that they're black and think, well, they don't belong in this store.
Oh, yeah.
So I want people to think, have they ever been in that situation? Have they seen this? Have they observed it? What would they do if they were in those circumstances? I don't know what to say to the people who would act that way. They probably won't change just because they read the book. But
right. But it is a very thought-provoking book.
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah.
And it isn't just that. I mean, I also want the book to be it's a love story, but I also want to understand that in our society, we have much more in common than our differences.
We do.
All kinds of people shop at Walmart, and they watch a beautiful sunset, and they get stuck in a snowstorm, and all this kind of stuff happens to everybody. Race has nothing to do with it. And so there's a lot of passages in the book. They're just about that. There's one I particularly like where Wesley and Emma Jean now become pretty close, and Emma Jean and her mother, who now lives in Iowa City because the sisters have brought her there to be in a retirement home, and Shay and Emma Jean and her sister and her mom, they invite Wes over to decorate the Christmas tree together. And I just really love that. I really love that scene because it's the commonalities that we have too. Mm-hmm.
There is a lot more to people than our preconceived notions of them, and that's one of the reasons why I like doing podcasts or getting to know people's stories, is because once you get to know people's stories and build relationships, it crosses so many bridges.
Yes,
and sure. So different ethnic backgrounds, different racial backgrounds, different socioeconomic backgrounds. We have so much in common with people, and our world is terribly divided, unfortunately so. But it's when we can learn to reach across and get to know someone's story and get to know them that it becomes a little closer. So we're all responsible for that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we hear about unity, and we are the United States after all, but we don't have as much of it as we need, and it's desperately needed at this time. I mean, maybe the most unified time in our country's history was during the Second World War, where so many people had to serve, so many people had to make sacrifices. People of all different ethnicities and religions and whatever made up the armed forces. Women took new roles in society they never had before because they had to, in defense plants and all that sort of thing. And fascist Germany was very strong. It took all of that, and our allies overseas, it took all of that unity to defeat a very strong evil force. And so unity is crucial to the success of any nation or culture.
Right. And it's sad at times that it takes something tragic to bring people together. But, like even 9/11 is what I think of, because the days after 9/11, people my age remember, I mean, everyone, where you were when you heard that. You saw the planes coming in, and you just saw this over and over again, and it was a different feel in America at that time.
Yeah.
So, but that was a tragedy that induced that. But we don't have to wait for a tragedy to reach across the aisle and get to know people.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the book and the opportunity to dive into that. You have, you said 6 books, right?
I do.
Okay. And 1 manuscript, so possibly a 7th coming out.
Possibly. I think it's kind of unlikely, but the Midwest Writing Center published my book, The Old Guard, and they take... they have a conference, a wonderful writers' conference, anybody's interested, called the David Collins Writing Conference every June. So if you're a writer and you want to know about it, go on the Midwest Writing Center website, and you'll find out about their programs. But they do publish 1 book every year from some local author, and I don't know, maybe I'll make a submission. But I haven't made a submission to them recently because they published my first book, and I figure I've had my second books. I figure I've had my turn. Let's put it that way.
Gotcha.
So I don't know.
Well, that's neat that it came out of a conference. I didn't realize that when you said that it was just a conference and they chose your book. So that's kind of an honor too.
Yes, yeah, they take submissions at that conference, and I don't know how many submissions they get. Probably a dozen. Each year, and they published. I'll set my book aside. They published some wonderful things. They published an author named Shishwan Collins, who lives in Davenport, who grew up in China but came to this country to study, then got married and stayed in this country. She has a wonderful book, which I get the title turned around. I think it's Falling Flowers, Flowing Water. Those are the 2 phrases anyway. I might not have them in the right order, but she's a wonderful, wonderful writer. And so they published some people who are really good.
Nice. And what was the website for that?
Just go to the Midwest Writing Center.
Midwest Writing Center.
Midwest Writing Center. They're headquartered in Rock Island.
Okay.
And they have a whole bunch of programs, not just the conference. They have a group that meet in Rock Island every once a month and write together, but they also have poetry readings and a whole variety of things. And they have a young emerging writers program for high school students and people like first year in college and such. Yeah.
And writing right now, I think, is becoming a lost art because so many people can just put in parameters to a story, type it into ChatGPT, and then it comes up with this story in minutes, and it's just like taking the art and the heart out of an actual book that's written by an actual person. And so and you see that I think we're going to be seeing that more and more as time goes on. So it's good to celebrate the books that are actually being written by actual people, especially local authors. And that's one of the reasons why we like to have local authors come on and you're in the Midwest and you're down here at our farmers market, and your stuff's at Burlington by the Book.
Yeah.
Do you have all 6 of your books at Burlington by the Book?
No, I don't. I had a book called Another Life, which was published by a small press in Davenport, 918 Studio Press. And the 2 women running that press, they kind of had other things they needed to do in their life, and the press doesn't exist in the same form anymore. And so that book has not been republished. It's called Another Life, and it's a story about what happens to a high school crush 37 years later. And it's an author from Muscatine, Misty Urban, who's very successful as a romance writer and as a writer of history and a whole variety of things. Very talented person. She wrote a blurb on the back and called it a sweet and soulful story. So I think it is. And you might find it in libraries someplace, because I gave some copies to some libraries. Silvis, Illinois Library has all my books, so if you're in a system where you can interlibrary loan from Illinois, Another Life is that one.
I'm going to guess that our Burlington Library can get them from Illinois.
Well, I also gave a copy of that book to the library in Davenport. But here's the thing about books in libraries. If they don't get checked out, they don't stay on the shelves forever. They have to make space. So.
Right. And
again, an author who's not well known doesn't usually have that much circulation. But I gave them a copy of the book, and if they wanted to keep it because I was more or less local, then it would still be there.
Okay, so you could get interlibrary loan.
Yeah.
So that's, do you have, and you have one more book besides that?
There's a book called Junk to Think About. And it's flash fiction. All the stories are 1,000 words or less, and some of them are less than 100 words.
Oh, wow.
And it's a fun book. The back of it says each of the stories has a smile, a tear, or a sigh. And that about sums it up. And they don't have time for much more than that. There's a bookstore called Wordsmith in Galesburg, and they have my books, a wonderful bookstore, and they're clearly in your nearby area. And they liked... Junk to Think About is the name of that flash fiction book, because when they had a break, they could read a story back and forth each other because some of them were short enough.
Oh, that's great. Oh, okay. So you have books kind of all over the place. You have a few of your books here in Burlington by the Book. Shout out to Chris there.
Yeah.
And when are you coming back to Burlington? You were just here, so probably next.
It'll be a while. I usually do some signings right before Christmas, so that's a possibility. But Chris does a wonderful job of making his place available for local authors to do signings. So people have to kind of take turns and wait for their opportunity. He does a great job with promoting the local authors. But I love coming back anytime.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you have any other things that you'd like to share with our readers, books, with our listeners?
Oh gosh, I don't know. That's such an open-ended question.
It is.
I guess I would say Lost in the Black Hologram, I think, is Lonnie Bunch at the Smithsonian said, this is a book everybody in America should read. Now, everybody in America is not going to read it, and I haven't sold millions of copies, but it's a piece of advice that I hope at least some people listening will say, well, maybe I should read that book, just because it's a book that's got some significant issues. And I think it's a nice book to read. I mean, I think it's, much of it is, they're very serious and some sad parts, but then there's some that are just plain fun, and I think most of my readers have enjoyed the book.
Yes, as have I.
Okay.
And if nothing else, you have to read it just so you can figure out what the picture on the front is all about, because I can't give it away.
That's right.
Because I am okay. I will admit, I peeked at the back when I was first going through the book, kind of just doing a flip through. I'm like, so then you have to read. Aha. So I'm bad about doing that with books.
As I think I mentioned before, my sister does that all the time.
But I did not tell the listeners, so they have to get the book to figure that out themselves.
Yes, and if you happen to get a hold of a copy of West Fork, which is also almost out of print, but West Fork is in quite a few libraries. You can probably find that in our library loan.
And that's at Burlington by the Book, too, West Fork, isn't it?
Yes, it's at Burlington by the Book. But there are only a few copies left in existence that aren't already in libraries. But I think that there's enough in libraries you can find it in your library loan. Don't read the end of that one first either. Please, you want to enjoy the book near as much if you read the ending first.
Well, that one seems like a kind of interesting one, just because the 1968, the changing of the one-room schoolhouses and things like that. Yeah, Doug used to DJ a little bit at a radio station that was rebuilt in a one-room schoolhouse, and they remodeled that.
Oh, wow.
And so that was fun to see that renovation of that building. And like I said, there's always the one that if I pass this one, and then I have to turn around because I missed my mom's turn. Yeah, but I mean, they're interesting buildings. They have a lot of history, and we actually have a historian. I want to say her name is Deb. I can't remember her last name, but she actually has a history presentation on one-room schoolhouses that she's done for Klein Center a few years back when I was over there. So, yeah.
Well, working in history as I did, there's a lot of African-American history, which is the underpinnings for Lost in the Black Hologram. West Fork is a very significant part of our history that's changed as rural culture has changed. I have a book of short stories called Finding Their Way, and the title story ends up in an historical theater building and I actually like that title story. Finding Their Way is the first short story in the collection. It's about a young woman who loses things, and everything she loses helps somebody in some way.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's kind of a nice story.
So somebody who loses things, it helps people in the long run.
I see some interaction going on here.
What? What are you implying?
I'm implying that every single time I lose my keys, it might help somebody.
Oh, you've helped a lot of people. That's for sure.
Oh, my best friend Debbie loses keys all the time. Maybe I should introduce you to.
Yeah, sometimes I put things where I won't forget them, and then I forget them. But
I thought everybody did that.
Oh, see? It helps people, and I'm not the only one that does it. Yes!
You're helping.
Now, I have to admit, this is a short story, so she only loses like 3 or 4 things in the story. She doesn't lose things all the time, but everything she loses does help somebody.
Okay. I'm just going to go with that. I'm helping people. I have a new perspective on when I lose something now. I love it. Oh, well, it sounds like you have just the wide variety from super, super short stories to short stories to the thought-provoking stories to the history and the history of the schools and history of the African-American history in Milwaukee especially, and you've had a lot of, interaction and the meeting Tracy Williams and getting, some discussion questions and things like that. It sounds like you're just a very well-rounded author of just all kinds of different things. Is there a certain genre that you like above all else, or are they all your favorites?
Well, I mean, I write what maybe would be called popular fiction or literary fiction somewhere in there. And that's really what I like. Mm-hmm. I don't read a whole lot of genre. I don't read very much romance. I don't read very much mystery. I've got friends who do both, who write romance and mystery. Mm-hmm. I have a friend in Vermont who writes science fiction. Meg Pecknick was very talented. But I tend to read more things similar to the way I want to write. And I have a variety of favorite authors. Richard Russo is one I've liked a lot. He wrote a book called Empire Falls, which won a Pulitzer Prize. Fannie Flagg, who wrote Fried Green Tomatoes.
I love the movie.
Yeah.
I now have to read the book.
She's got several books, and I enjoy her. And she has a lot of humor in her book. She has one book that's my favorite book, Can't Wait to Get to Heaven. And it starts with an elderly woman falling out of a persimmon tree. And it goes from there. And it's really funny. And in fact, that's why I wrote The Old Guard, because I wanted to write a book. I'd written other stuff, but I hadn't tried to really write a novel that was actually funny. So Old Guard is a short novel, a very short novel. I just wanted to write something funny, and that was the inspiration. The book is nothing like what she writes, but that's the inspiration, because there's not very much humor, fiction, like novels that are humorous. And a lot of the ones are kind of snarky.
Yeah.
But she isn't. And so I wanted to write one that wouldn't be either, but would still be funny.
Oh, very cool.
So she's kind of an inspiration. And then, Ann Tyler is an author I've liked. She's been around for a long time. Elizabeth Berg is another one.
Well, I'll have to look at the fried green tomato. Who wrote that again? Fannie Flagg?
Fanny Flagg.
Fanny.
Yeah.
Fanny Flagg. Okay. And what was the book about the lady falling out of the persimmon tree?
Can't Wait to Get to Heaven.
Can't wait to hear. Okay, I'll have to look that one up.
I think it's still in print. Now, as long as we're recommending books, because I always do this when I do a book signing, because a lot of people don't read the kind of stuff I write. I try to have some suggestions in areas they read. There's a children's book that I always recommend. It's been around a long time, but it's still in print, called Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. So if you're listening and you've got kids who are anywhere from like 2 to 7 or 8, get a copy of Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. It's all in verse. It's a clever, funny little story. And everybody I've ever recommended it to said, "Oh, my kids just loved this book." So Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. So I think that's my recommendations for them.
Okay. We got lots of good recommendations. I think that will probably do it for this edition of the King Kong Trail. It has been an honor to have you on, and we look forward to seeing you when you're back at Burlington by the book. We'll have to put your information up when you do that so that we can have our readers and then have them flip back to this so they get to know you again. Readers, I did it again. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's just been it's great. I'm just really excited to see how this might help get your book out there, and and then with the discussion guide too, it would be good for book clubs and things like that. So, how would someone you said that you're available to come like during book clubs or different events. How would someone get a hold of you for that?
What is the best? I'm kind of cautious about my email because I'm getting so many things nowadays that I shouldn't be getting. I suppose I'll give you my phone number.
Okay.
It's area code 309-755-3519.
Okay.
That's a landline. I answer it if I'm there. If I'm not, just leave a message, and I always check my messages.
Okay.
And I think that's probably the best way. I don't know about you, but I've just got a spate of things that I shouldn't be getting on my Gmail. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I just got a new work phone, and I've been getting things on my work phone saying, "Oh yeah, your tax refund that you didn't file in so and so year. I noticed that you needed help with it." I'm like, this is a work number. 1, 2. I'm not clicking anything on. Yeah, there's so many things that are out there that are just trying to spam people and fish for information. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there really are, and I think I fessed up to the fact that I'm really living in the past. So I don't have an internet connection at home. I go to the library once a day and check my email, and the library's got a pretty good filter on stuff too. So sometimes I get stuff they won't recognize an address or won't let me open and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'll put a phone call in. I'll get back to you for sure if I'm not there in person.
Okay. So if you came down to do a presentation like you're talking about, what time frame would that be? Is that an hour thing, 2 hours?
It's usually about little bit more than a half an hour of the presentation, maybe 35 minutes, because I usually read 2 or 3 passages out of the book. And then questions and answers as long as people want. Sometimes it's been 45 minutes. Sometimes it's been an hour and 15 minutes. You know, I've done it mostly at libraries, but I've done it in bookstores and any type of community organization that wants to do it. That there's a local history museum that wants a program. Because there's not only the Milwaukee African American history, but there are also underpinnings of African American history in Iowa in the book too. So, but it's mostly been through libraries. But I'm open to, and book clubs can be anybody.
Okay, that's really great information because it would get you, it would get people talking about the book, but also discussing some of the deeper themes in it.
Yes.
So, yeah. Oh, well, this has been fun. I'm really glad you were able to come.
Okay. Should I say the phone number one more time?
Yes, and then I'm going to have you write it down after we do this, and it'll actually pop up on the screen. So.
Oh, well, that's even better. But it's 309-755-3519.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tom, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you. And when I see you next time at the bookstore, I'll be like, "Hey, how you doing?" And then we'll know each other. So I think that'll do it for this edition of the King Kong Trail. And with my tech crew back here, Doug, and of course our esteemed guest, Mr. Tom McKay. So thank you so much for coming in, and thanks for joining, and welcome to the King Kong Trail.
Thank you much.
Bye, everybody.